From the nation's capital, Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. A weekly discussion about the federal issues most important to Nevada. And now, from Washington, D.C., here's Marilee Joyce.
And good day to you. I'm Marilee Joyce, and this is Eye on Washington, the only statewide Nevada news program produced in Washington, D.C. Every week, Eye on Washington takes you straight to Capitol Hill for a discussion with Nevada's delegation and other leaders about the federal matters that matter to you. Today's topic, protecting Nevada and this nation. We'll find out one Nevada U.S. Congressman's thoughts on how to keep you and yours safe and finding the most fiscally sound ways to do so. And he is my guest today, of course, Nevada U.S. Congressman Joe Heck. Thanks for being here again today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Marilee.
Thanks. He says that his 19 years of service in our nation's military and his master's degree from the U.S. Army War College give him firsthand knowledge and experience when it comes to discussing how to safeguard this country. And today on Eye on Washington, we'll discuss his roles on the House Intelligence and Armed Services Committee and what his memberships mean to Nevada's security. We'll find out about his efforts to bring fiscal responsibility to the defense budget while not cutting back on the parts that he says keep us safe. And we'll update you on the debate over extending the Patriot Act and whether my guest thinks it's helped keep us safe or whether it needs some changes. Let's start quickly with that latter topic. It's a topic on the minds of many following the U.S.'s killing of Osama bin Laden in May. In late winter, Congress quietly passed and the president quietly signed into law a 90-day extension of the USA Patriot Act. It was a law signed by then-President George W. Bush almost 2 months after the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. The act dramatically reduced the restrictions placed on law enforcement agencies when searching telephone and email, medical, financial, and other records, eased restrictions on foreign intelligence gathering within the U.S., expanded the Treasury Secretary's ability to regulate financial transactions, and broadened the discretion of law enforcement and immigration authorities in detaining and deporting immigrants suspected of terrorism-related acts. As we tape this show today, Congress is debating whether to extend it for 3 years. Congressman Heck sided with those in favor of the temporary measure and said that it, quote, gives our troops, law enforcement, and first responders a tool they need to continue fighting the war on terrorism while providing the opportunity to conduct a thorough and necessary review of the entire Patriot Act before final action. And we're going to get to your thoughts on extending the act in a moment. But first, for our audience, I want to discuss the act itself. We give our audience just a bit more history and why it was deemed so very necessary after 9/11.
Sure. Well, post 9/11, after we suffered those terrible terrorist attacks, the intelligence community realized that they didn't have the tools that they needed to be able to go after potential terrorists. And many of the provisions within the Patriot Act are based upon tools that civilian law enforcement already has to go after a common criminal, but they weren't available to go after somebody, a foreign terrorist, or somebody who is working as a lone wolf, a non-state actor. And so this was an opportunity to try to give those tools to our intelligence community and our federal law enforcement partners who are trying to prosecute and find these terrorists, the tools they needed to bring them to justice. And so the law was passed. It was amended in 2005 because many people thought it might have been overreaching when it first passed. So it was amended in 2005. It was subsequently renewed again, and now there's just 3 provisions that come up for renewal on a regular basis. So there were supposed to be those 3 provisions. There were supposed to be hearings on those in the last Congress after the last annual extension, but they never took place. And so they came up for expiration again in this February, and so we had to extend them to allow those hearings to take place and get the information we needed to see if they were doing the job.
You mentioned, it has drawn some fire over the years for those who are concerned about some privacy right. In your view, does protecting the country from terrorism mean that some privacy rights must be sacrificed, or?
Well, I don't believe so, and I don't think the Patriot Act does that, these 3 provisions specifically that we're talking about, because all 3 of these provisions still require the FISA court, the federal security court, to be involved to look at the information being provided by the agency that wants the roving wiretap, or to go after a business record, or to be able to go after a lone wolf terrorist. And so there's still a judicial overview. On top of that, being a member of the House Intelligence Committee, all of this is reviewed by the House Intelligence Committee as well. So there's also congressional oversight of these provisions of the bill.
You know, related question. Tell our audience, what were you doing job-wise September 11th? I think your personal history as a first responder might give you a unique perspective into this whole debate, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, at the time I was living here in the Washington, D.C. area, working for the Department of Defense in a medical response to acts of terrorism capacity. And so we ran a medical support team that responded to terrorism attacks. And so on 9/11, one of my teams was actually one of the first arrivals at the Pentagon. We were doing some training over at the Anacostia area with the U.S. Park Police with their helicopter unit. And so the plane that hit the Pentagon had flown overhead. Everybody was wondering what was going on. The word went out on the radio, and one of my medics jumped on a Park Police helicopter and flew right over to the Pentagon and was one of the first arrivals. We sent teams up to the World Trade Center site. In fact, I was up there shortly after the incident took place and provided support there. And so we were very involved in trying to get medical support to those folks who were suffering, as well as the law enforcement officials who would be there doing the investigations.
And how does that, not only your being there on that huge day, but just your activities as a first responder, how does it kind of give you a unique perspective into this debate?
Well, because I've been on the front lines fighting this battle, not just as an Army reservist, but working with law enforcement and seeing how they try to execute their missions and the obstacles they come up against in trying to find these people that want to do us harm. And so I started off as a rural volunteer ambulance attendant as a teenager. Started working on the ambulance, worked as a firefighter, worked with law enforcement, and so it's that personal experience. And I lost friends both at the World Trade Center site and at the Pentagon, and so for me it's a personal matter. Well,
you have a lot of experience in security matters, also given your roles on the House Armed Services and the House Intel Committees, and we're going to talk about that on Eye on Washington right after this.
You're watching Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. Brought to you by the Southern Nevada Water Authority, the National Mining Association, the Frias Companies, Caesars Entertainment, NV Energy, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, Western Lithium Corporation, and Skyline Restaurant and Casino.
Sunrise, the Mojave Desert. Just another day in Southern Nevada? Think again, pal. Millions of concerned citizens are throwing in to conserve water. Yes, from the welcoming hills of Boulder City to the friendly streets of Spring Valley, everyone's playing their part. Way to go, Joe. It's a desert out there. Be water smart. Go to snwa.com.
You already watch Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's only statewide program produced in Washington, D.C. But for even more news from Capitol Hill that affects you, your family, and your business, you need to read Nevada's Washington Watch, our online newsletter. In-depth reporting on federal efforts that impact you. Our exclusive Inside the Beltway column, putting a microscope on Nevada's congressional delegation. Guest editorials about what Nevada needs from the Hill. Nevada's Washington Watch, your watch on Washington. Subscribe today at nevadaswashingtonwatch.com.
Heads we go, tails we stay. A coin flip. That's how it all began for what is now Nevada's largest transportation provider. Charlie Frias, with a can-do spirit and support of his loving wife Phyllis, bought ABC Union Cab in 1966. They then parlayed 5 cabs into a fleet of nearly 1,000. And today, Frias has over 2,000 employees and was recently voted Las Vegas's best company to work for. Frias, safe, reliable, simply the best.
America's minerals have made us a nation of self-reliant dreamers, shaping our world and the endless ways we enjoy it. But red tape often forces us to import more than half the minerals we depend on. Minerals we already have. We don't import our dreams. Shouldn't that go for our minerals, too? The National Mining Association. Learn more at nma.org.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion about keeping Nevada and this nation safe. My guest today, Nevada U.S. Congressman Joe Heck. When the House debates security-related measures, our Congressman Heck might be paying just a bit more attention to both the debate around them and the outcome than some of his colleagues. That's because he's a member of the House Intelligence Committee. And just as he set up the Patriot Act debates, so he says he feels about all security issue debates and votes, he said, quote, "As a member of the House Intelligence Committee, I will play an active role in the oversight of this measure in Congress." So let's look at the role of this House committee. We don't have time to list all 19 executive branch departments or agencies the House Intelligence Committee oversees, but a handful of you here: the CIA, the FBI, the Department of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, and the National Security Agency. And meanwhile, Congressman Heck also serves on the House Armed Services Committee, which oversees defense policy and ongoing military operations, the Cooperative Threat Reduction Program, and defense-related efforts. And Congressman, I want to shift to a couple related issues you've said are big focuses for you right now. First, regarding armed services, you've said you're concerned about the appetite of some on the Hill to close bases. And, you're saying that threatens Nevada facilities and also the jobs that they provide, correct?
Sure, and we went through a scare not too long ago where the Hawthorne Army Depot was slated for closure. Fortunately, that was taken off the list. But Nevada is very unique in the facilities that we can provide. I mean, we're home of the premier Air Force fighter school. We have our folks out at Creech Air Base that are piloting the unmanned aerial vehicles all around the world and playing a very important role in our intelligence collections and helping our war fighters that are on the ground. And then there's also other activities that take place up in Hawthorne besides storing munitions. And so that, coupled with the fact that we have the National Test Site, makes us uniquely suited to be an area where everybody within the intelligence community and the Department of Defense can come and practice, train, and bring and develop new technologies.
I want to be clear to our audience, it's big. The House Intelligence Committee is charged with overseeing the United States intelligence community, and that's a big oversight role. Would you help our audience understand what it means to, for example, oversee the CIA? What does that mean to the audience here?
Well, obviously a lot of what the CIA does is hidden to the public, but there needs to be a way to provide oversight and make sure that they're accomplishing their mission. They're staying within the boundaries that they are told to stay within when they are executing the missions that they're given. And that's the role of one of the roles of the Intelligence Committee, where our meetings are held in a secured facility where only members of the committee are able to get access. But it's that one-on-one, so it's a relatively small committee. We build relationships with the directors of the agencies, and that's how we can provide the oversight to the American people, saying, look, while some are concerned about Big Brother and some of these activities that the intelligence community may engage in, we're there to make sure that they're keeping that line.
I know that you can't give us any specifics. I understand what intelligence means, but how about its connection to operations such as May's killing of Osama bin Laden?
Well, the intelligence community was critical to the success of that mission, because you have to realize that it was those unsung heroes, those faceless people that are in the intelligence community that actually are the ones that found Osama bin Laden and were able to track him and keep him under surveillance and guide in the elite SEAL team to finally execute the mission. So without the intelligence community doing the front end, the SEAL team would have never been able to execute the back end.
Another armed services related issue. You were recently part of a congressional delegation with Speaker Boehner. Where did you go?
We went to Iraq, Pakistan, and Afghanistan.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it was a great opportunity for me to go back. I had been previously in Iraq and Afghanistan with the military. Now it was a great opportunity to go back and see how things had progressed since I was last there. It was also beneficial to have traveled with the Speaker because of his presence, we were able to meet with the leaders of those countries, with President Karzai and Prime Minister Galani. And so we were able to get a one-on-one audience of how they felt things were going in their own country, what they thought of the timeline for troop withdrawal, and how they thought everything was progressing. So it was a great opportunity to get that information. Again, as part of the oversight role of Congress, we're putting aid money in all those countries. We have intelligence activities going on in those countries, so it's critically important for us to know where our dollars are going.
And what is your impression of U.S. missions in the Middle East?
Well, I think that if you look at each country, I think we're making great gains in Afghanistan. There's always an opportunity. We'll always hear about the isolated attack, and certainly we're expecting increased attacks post the Osama bin Laden mission. But many of the provinces within Afghanistan are much safer now than they were previously. When I was there, we were able to go visit a school, walk through the village, shops were open, and they said that a year ago you wouldn't have been able to do that.
Okay. When Eye on Washington returns, can you cut the fat from military programs and still keep us safe? Congressman Heck says yes. We're going to find out what he thinks about all that when we return.
Sunrise, the Mojave Desert. Just another day in southern Nevada? Think again, pal. Millions of concerned citizens are throwing in to conserve water. Yes, from those hipsters in Henderson to those frolicking families around Lone Mountain, everyone's playing their part. Nice frolicking. It's a desert out there. Be water smart. Go to snwa.com.
Every day, thousands of people in northern Nevada don't get enough to eat. 1 out of 5 children in northern Nevada go to bed hungry every night. But you can do something about it. Catholic Community Services of Northern Nevada has been providing help and creating hope in our community for more than 65 years. By donating food, time, or money, you can make a difference in a hungry person's life. When you make your generous donation to St. Vincent's Dining Room and St. Vincent's Food Pantry, you're helping to fight the scourge of hunger in northern Nevada. In these tough economic times, now more than ever, we need to help those less fortunate. To find out how you can donate to St. Vincent's Dining Room and St. Vincent's Food Pantry, call, click, or stop by, and together we can end hunger in northern Nevada.
How will new energy technology make our lives better? Will geothermal, wind, and solar energy be a bigger part of our future? Yes. And soon it will all be in our backyard. Learn more at nvenergy.com.
You already watch Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's only statewide program produced in Washington, D.C. But for even more news from Capitol Hill that affects you, your family, and your business, you need to read Nevada's Washington Watch, our online newsletter. In-depth reporting on federal efforts that impact you. Our exclusive Inside the Beltway column, putting a microscope on Nevada's congressional delegation. Guest editorials about what Nevada needs from the Hill. Nevada's Washington Watch, your watch on Washington. Subscribe today at nevadaswashingtonwatch.com.
Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion of efforts to keep Nevada and the nation both safe and prepared. We've been visiting with Nevada U.S. Congressman Joe Heck. Well, let's look now at another armed services related hat that our congressman has donned since coming to the Hill. That's the role of looking for ways to cut the fat from bloated military programs or contracts while not cutting defense in ways that affect your safety. Here's a recent example for you. Earlier this spring, he determined that the Army Reserve's reliance on a private contractor to conduct medical screening of drilling reservists has driven up costs while reducing readiness of medics and reserve units. Now, Eye on Washington told you earlier this year that the congressman is also an Army Reserve colonel and physician. And he said recently that he's been watching in frustration as the Reserve's arrangement with Logistics Health Incorporated basically handcuffed his reserve medical staff on weekend drills from providing basic preventive health care services to fellow reservists. He says the contract prevents reserve medics from providing things like flu shots or preventive dental care, and that thousands of reservists are classified as medically non-deployable because the contract relies relies on questionnaires to assess fitness for duty, and that it took about 6 months to clear up incorrect LHI fitness assessments. He guesstimated that most of the 10,000 or so reservists deemed medically non-deployable are, in fact, fit to serve. And Congressman, here's what you told the press, quote, LHI does important work to ensure reservists stay medically fit. The problem is it doesn't really accomplish that in a timely and cost-effective manner. And it was that timely, cost-effective part that you were really concerned about.
No, definitely, because as a commander who has 2,500 soldiers that I'm trying to keep fit and ready for deployment, it's difficult when they go through these annual screenings, and then a month or two after the screening, I get notified that they're no longer deemed medically fit to be deployed. But I've got to say, much to the credit of the Army Reserve and LHI, we've had great meetings since this broke, and we're working cooperatively to work out the kinks in the system, so that one, medical reservists can start to use their skills again on their drill weekends, but also so we can straighten out the problems that we're having with this paperwork trail and the what we call profiles are being given to our soldiers. We're straightening out those issues. So everybody's been very cooperative in trying to clear this up, and it's moving along well.
You say it's better now. Back when this was a problem, LHI replied to your comments by stating in the last 3 years, the Army Reserve, quote, has witnessed historical medical and dental readiness improvement, but that didn't jive with what you witnessed then. You oversee, as you said, 2,200 medically trained reservists, correct?
Correct, and that was some of the discrepancies that we saw. I mean, when I looked at my unit, we didn't see a lot of increased medical readiness, and it's all a matter of how you measure what is considered readiness. And so, again, the ability to have had the conversation with LHI, with the folks in the Army Reserve Command, and now being able to work cooperatively, because at the end, we want to make sure that it's our warfighters taken care of and is medically fit to deploy and gets the medical care that they need.
Right, and we should be clear, you weren't out to punish LHI, or you were out to rectify something that was especially making it difficult for you to provide dental care and what have you, and also being classified as medically non-deployable when in fact they were. You said that they relied on questionnaires. Give us an example of, instead of fitness tests, they were paper and pencil. Yeah, sure. When they went through their annual assessment, it's based on filling out a questionnaire about medical issues. And if you answered that you might have had a problem, let's say knee pain, you might have come out of that with a profile saying you were medically unfit, and then it would have had to been adjudicated to make you medically fit, all because you said you had some knee pain, without there being a full exam prior to having the profile issued. You know, it's rare to hear of a Senate or House member taking a truly active role in cutting fat from the military, and people are wary to take that on, et cetera. But you say there are many ways to do this that don't threaten safety. There are, and I think, when we were sent here in November, the group that was sent here in November, we were sent to cut out wasteful spending and try to control our debt and our deficit. And that means you've got to be able to look at every program that the federal government is involved with, including defense. And to his credit, Secretary Gates has found $178 billion within the defense budget that he feels can be cut. And those are some of the cuts that we're looking at. So, of course, we're going to go to the agencies first and say, look, come to us and you tell us first what you think you can do without, and then we'll scrub the rest of the budget and see where else there might be some savings. And certainly in areas, for me personally, it's a matter of looking at weapon systems. I'd rather put dollars into taking care of soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and their families. Because you can have the best weapon system, but if you don't have the person to get the sight picture or pull the trigger, it doesn't make a difference. As we wrap up the security-related part of this program, what are some of the main security issues that Nevadans watching and listening today should care about? Well, there's always chatter about whether or not Southern Nevada might be a terrorist target because of what we're associated with. And I think it's important that people in Nevada always remain vigilant. They shouldn't become complacent now all because Osama bin Laden is no longer. And I think that's the risk that we run. We were very vigilant post 9/11, and then we started to become complacent again. And then we started to see attempted attacks on U.S. soil. So I would hope that everyone remains vigilant at all times, especially in a place like Southern Nevada. Okay, thank you. We're going to come right back with our mailbag segment right after this.
Sunrise, the Mojave Desert. Just another day in Southern Nevada? Think again, pal. Millions of concerned citizens are throwing in to conserve water. Yes, from the sunny folks at Sunrise Mountain to our pals out in Red Rock. Everyone's playing their part. Saving water is fun? I'll say it's a desert out there. Be water smart. Go to snwa.com.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No, no, no.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
Built on a fleet of just 5 cabs bought in 1966 by founder Charlie Frias, Frias Transportation is now Nevada's largest transportation provider. Today, Frias has a fleet of nearly 1,000 vehicles and more than 2,000 employees. As an industry and community leader, Frias continues to create the future of transportation technology and management and actively supports the community, continuing the legacy of quality service in the Las Vegas Valley. Simply the best. Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
Sunrise, the Mojave Desert. Just another day in southern Nevada? Think again, pal. Millions of concerned citizens are throwing in to conserve water. Guests from those hipsters in Henderson to those frolicking families around Lone Mountain, everyone's playing their part. Nice frolicking. It's a desert out there. Be water smart. Go to snwa.com.
And we are back with our closing segment of Eye on Washington. It's our mailbag segment. In this segment, we tell you about an issue the congressional mailbag page of the Joyce Communication website has been getting a lot of correspondence about. We read one of your letters on the air, and we invite our guests to respond to you right here. And Congressman, don't be surprised, but we've got a letter on the economy. I have a letter from Joseph R. of Las Vegas. He writes, Dear Congressman Heck, it seems Congress has decided a good way to manage money is to create programs that reward people for mismanaging their personal finances by bailing them out without requiring them to pay back anything, using money taken from increasing amounts from people who deserve to be rewarded for being financially responsible and saving their entire lives. This goes against every money management principle I can think of. When can we expect to see personal responsibility return to America's value system? What do you say to Joseph?
That's a great question, and certainly something that we're wrestling with now as we go through the budget deliberations, and there's competing budget proposals that are coming to committee. I certainly am a big supporter of personal responsibility and the fact that we need to make sure that people have the tools that they need to take care of themselves. But likewise, when you're in a place like Southern Nevada, which is now #1 in foreclosures, personal bankruptcies, and unemployment, some people are going to need help. And so you've got to walk that balance of saying, look, we want to be the helping hand to get that person through whatever crisis they might be having and get them back to being self-sufficient and self-sustaining. And that comes back to decreasing the spending here in Washington, getting our debt and deficit under control, providing some stability and predictability to businesses so that they'll feel confident enough to start growing again and getting people back to work. And once we do that and more people are back to work, we'll decrease our unemployment. People will be able to make their mortgage payments, and we'll get into that cycle of prosperity
Personal
once again.
responsibility with a safety net for the Nevadans who need it.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks so much, and thanks for being here again today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That does wrap up this week's Eye on Washington. Be sure to go to our website, joycecommunications.com, and check out more federal issues that impact Nevada while you are there. And thanks for joining us today. I'm Marilee Joyce in Washington. Have a great day.